Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe. I'm joined today by the Manchester United correspondent for ESPN, Rob Dawson. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm good.
Good. We're here to talk about some transfers. We're here to talk about the summer coming up, a little sort of look at the Ten Hag era that's on its way as well. First of all, transfer window has opened in the last week. How is it for you sort of reporting on that day to day?
I could do with United signing someone,
Yeah.
as I'm sure all the fans
could.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things where people assume that the job is a season and the season finishes and then you kind of a bit of free time, but it's not. It's even worse in the summer. The players that they're linked with, the players they're trying to sign, the fans get behind names, agents talking to different people. It's madness.
Yeah, I bet it is. Let's just get straight into some names, and I'll throw some names at you. You tell me what you know and what's going on. Frenkie de Jong's one that seemed to sort of accelerate in the last sort of 10 days, and then so far this week, almost nothing, no updates, no nothing. Looking like on Friday there was reports that it might be not announced, but looking towards getting official on Monday, and then we haven't heard anything this week. What's your understanding of the Frenkie de Jong situation?
Yeah, I mean that's been a little bit of an odd one. Even a couple of months ago, United were kind of saying that obviously he was a player that they liked, but maybe someone that was unattainable. I think Barca had said at the time, or Xavi had said at the time, that that you wanted to keep him, and that would make it quite difficult. Since then, obviously, Barca have they're trying to sell him ultimately. They've got financial problems, and because of that, there was bits leaked to the Spanish media about possibly he would be available. When that happens, then United become front of the queue, really. He's been offered to pretty much every major European club. Right. There are only certain ones that are interested in that type of midfielder. United being one, obviously, PSG another, but other teams like City have kind of said, yeah, we like him, but not really this summer. And then it becomes a little bit more serious. And you're right, it has kind of escalated in the last few weeks, down, I think, to him sort of saying that he would be open to it. There was no secret at one stage that he wasn't that keen and would quite like to stay at Barca. Since then, I think United have been given quite a lot of encouragement that that is not all the case, and that if it came down to it and he was being pushed out, that United would be a viable option for him. Since then, it has gone a bit quiet. I think part of the problem is that United are very conscious about overpaying. The feeling at United is that ultimately Barca want to sell him. Yeah. It's not a player that United are trying to, you go to a club and they're saying he's not for sale, we want to keep him. Barca are actively trying to sell him, so why would you want to pay over the odds for him? Again, they're conscious that this is a deal that Barca are hoping is going to solve in the short term some of their financial problems. They need this money to spend again in the summer and bring in new players, so they don't want to be the source of Barca's income for the entire summer. So it has to be the right deal. The bottom line is though that he's a player that Ten Hag knows. It fills a position that is in desperate need of strengthening. I think all fans could probably agree with that. He's obviously a wonderful player. It's about getting the right deal and making sure that it's right for the player, obviously for Barca, but also for Man United, because we've seen again and again and again that United don't come off very well in deals like this. So they just have to get it right. I think probably at this point, if I was having to guess, it would be one that I think will get done eventually. But you never know. Until it's done, it's not done. Yeah,
like I said, there seems to be so many sort of pieces in place. The fact that they want him out or they need the money for him is a huge step along the way, isn't it?
It's massive. The problem then comes if the player wants to come. Yeah. If he feels he's being forced out, then that's a different kind of narrative around the entire move. United fans might listen to that and start groaning, thinking, "Oh, I've heard this before." Di Maria or Sanchez, players who didn't really want to come but ended up coming, and then it didn't really work out. So United have to be sure that Frenkie de Jong wants to come and he wants to play in this system and wants to be part of a successful future. Because we hear time and time again that he wants to play in the Champions League. Well, he's obviously not going to do that at United next year, but there is a chance, hopefully, that he's going to do that again and again and again, in the future. It's about whether he wants to be part of it ultimately. I'm pretty sure at some stage there will be an agreement between the clubs, and then it's down to him whether he wants to come, whether the club feel like he wants to come enough to make it happen. It's one of those things.
Just a couple of points on sort of behind the scenes a little bit. Obviously, this, I know he's been working there for a little while now, but John Murtaugh, this certainly, in terms of public opinion, is kind of the first transfer window where he's got the reins to himself. And, there seems to be, from the outside looking in at least, an indication that they want to look as though they're doing things a bit differently. How important is that to United at the moment, that kind of almost the PR side, or John Murtaugh not wanting to look like he's been, bent over by Barcelona, and this new structure and new system getting off to a good start? Is that playing on the mind, do you think, of United a lot as well?
I think it's certainly a consideration. They've tried very hard to show that John is in charge of the football side of things. I mean, you'll have noticed in the press releases that come out, when they sign players or whether the manager comes in, it's no longer quotes from Ed Woodward or we would be Richard Ardle now. It's John Murtaugh. He's the one that's speaking about these players and these the new manager. So there's that thing. When Ed left, he was very conscious to show people and tell people that he thought that his legacy was that the recruitment side of the operation, which had been failing, there's no other way to put it, was fixed. That the things were in place now to make sure that United could recruit players in a way that matched the likes of Liverpool and City. Right. And the club are very, very keen to show that is what is happening. And you're right, there's an awful lot of pressure on John and Darren Fletcher, because it's the first summer window. It's a massive window because it's a new manager. The last season was disappointing. The fans are all on the edge of the seats thinking, look, how is this rebuild going to start off? So there's a massive amount of pressure, and they are keen to show that they're doing things the right way, and it's not a case of just going back to old principles and doing things the way that you used to, because ultimately that didn't work. No. United haven't been successful for 10 years because they've not signed the right players. So they want to show, particularly with their marquee signing, if that's Frenkie de Jong or someone else, that they've got a good deal. They've got a good player for a good price, and he's going to be a central part of the team going forward. So I'm not saying it's the biggest part of what they're trying to do this summer, but certainly it's a consideration. Yeah,
and also if he gets a good deal for De Jong, regardless of how it makes him look, it's good for the club and therefore good for everyone, isn't it? So that would make sense. Just on that, you talk about marquee signings there, and whoever it comes to be throughout the summer. One person it isn't is Darwin Núñez, who United were linked with. You reported that, and I think pretty much everyone reported that United were interested in Darwin Núñez. He's now gone to Liverpool for 80 million up front plus 20 million in almost sort of, I would say, sort of jarringly easy add-ons. Some of them, I don't think Liverpool wanted to pay 100 million, but I think they will if he plays about 50 games for them. What was United's interest in Núñez, and how did that sort of pan out? Because there's one half of the fan base, not necessarily half, but there's certainly certain people in United's fan base who go, thank God we didn't get him. It's too much money. We don't have enough to spend 80 million on a relatively unproven striker. And there's another half going, how come Liverpool have got the jump on United again? They're already ahead of us, and now they're signing our top targets. What's your understanding of that deal?
I mean, my understanding of United's interest was that it was there. Yeah. Ralph Rangnick said in press conferences that they needed a young striker. There aren't many young strikers with that kind of record around Europe. Because of that, he was certainly someone that they looked at. There were issues around his fitness, that people at United were kind of questioning whether his fitness would hold up, and I think he's had issues in the past. It wasn't enough to deter him, full stop. They knew that, and they explored it beyond that. We were told that maybe United's interest came a little bit late. Right. That Liverpool did have you said they had the jump on him. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. That they were working on this for quite a long time, and were able to kind of get it over the line quite quickly. I think it appeared to everyone that it was reported, especially by the Merseyside journalist, that they were in for him, and then sort of a week later it was all done and dusted, and he was having his medical, and that was that. So I think United may have been a little bit late. What I will say, though, is that United have made it very, very clear that their priority this summer is to sign a central midfield player. Right. They obviously are looking at attacking players. They would like to strengthen the attack, but they need a central midfield player. And when it came to the crunch, I think they were more interested in making sure that everything was in place to sign a central midfield player, rather than signing a striker and getting to a point where they maybe didn't have the funds or didn't have the processes in place to get that midfielder done. So I'm not suggesting that United have messed it up in any way. I think it's just one of those things where Liverpool have been working on it a bit longer. He was a player that United liked. They looked at him, they explored it. He's ended up going to Liverpool, but United have maintained that they need a central midfielder first. I think it may be a case that they'll sign a central midfielder, and then you may see other things falling into place, because Ten Hag in particular has made it very clear to John Murtaugh and the rest of them that it has to be a central midfielder first.
Yeah, it seemed like that was our weakest point anyway, and then we've lost Matic and Pogba. So we needed reinforcements, and now we just need numbers in there, let alone better players. So yeah, surely that's the main area of concern. Frenkie de Jong obviously is the main name being linked at the minute. Like you said, if you had to guess, you would maybe think that deal might get over the line just based on the factors at play. Are there any other names that you've heard in that area? Because it seems as though, Woodward used to get, or whoever it was in charge, Judge or Woodward, used to get a lot of criticism for having this sort of one at a time policy, where it felt like everything had to be done in a line, get one done, then start on the next one. Is there sort of multiple irons in the fire here, or is it all Frankie and then we'll talk after that?
No, it's certainly not. And from what we're led to believe, I mean, we have for a while, is that they will narrow down positions. There's a short list of 3 for each position. Okay. That's been narrowed down from probably a short list of around 10, going back to sort of February and March. So it's not a case that it's De Jong or bust, particularly with this one, because it is in the balance a little bit. So there are other names. I'm surprised that there's not more talk about Declan Rice. I think obviously people will know that name and know that United have been linked with him, but it seems to have gone very, very quiet, whereas there is a suggestion, particularly around people at West Ham, is that is not completely off the table. West Ham don't want to sell him. Particularly because they got into Europe, they think that another season in Europe will keep him there for another season. But I think if you ask people close to Declan whether that is open and shut, I'm not sure that you get that answer. Obviously, price is an issue with Rice. He's West Ham star man. He's got a contract. They're valuing him at far more than £100 million, which would obviously be off-putting.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised there's not more noise around that. And I'd be very, very surprised if United weren't exploring about a way to bring that price down. Because ultimately for me, this is just a personal opinion. I think he would be perfect.
Yeah.
Having seen him play and see the things he can do, I think he would be perfect for that midfield. Obviously, Frenkie de Jong is considerably cheaper, and it's a lot easier a deal to get done because Barca are trying to sell him.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I'm surprised there's not more noise around Rice.
They're sort of quite different types of players as well, aren't they? So it'd be interesting to see what United went for there. I think today it's basically not been announced yet, but Tottenham have agreed a fee for Bissouma with Brighton. That's obviously a player that almost seemed to have more fan interest than club interest. But is that number 6 a bit more defensive because De Jong's a bit box to box, or he likes to bring play out? Is there an eye on a number 6, a more tackling, ball-winning player for United? Because that, again, from the fans' perspective, that seems to be the thing we've missed since Michael Carrick retired. I know he didn't tackle a lot, but his positioning, what is there any sort of interest in that, do you think, for the club?
I mean, that's the thing that would worry me about De Jong. I mean, obviously everyone will know about De Jong and how great a player he is, but I've seen on Twitter people sort of suggesting we could have a midfield 3 of De Jong, Van de Beek and Fernandes, which sounds great. Yeah. But it's quite lightweight.
It's good when you've got the ball.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
It's not so good when you don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to lose games 5-4 every week.
Yeah.
I mean that's why I'm surprised that there's not more noise around Rice, because in my mind they need someone a little bit more physical in there, particularly because there are issues around the defence. I mean, the last video of yours I saw, you were talking about how many goals they conceded. They conceded more than Burnley.
Yeah.
So if you're conceding that amount of goals and strengthening the defence is 3rd on your list of options. So ultimately, you're going to have that defence probably next year. You need someone to protect them because they're not defending very well. De Jong is great on the ball and a great passer. Is he going to be able to sit there in the Premier League and defend the back 4 that leaked goals like nobody's business last year? I don't know.
No, me neither. I think it might need to be him and another, personally. Talking about that defence then, because again, another one that seems to have gone quiet in the last week or two. During Timber's someone who was linked with, almost to the point again where you're thinking, right, based on how these normally go, maybe in the next week or so we're going to be hearing a fee agreed or that next step being taken. I haven't heard anything about that in a week. What's your understanding of what's going on there? Because it feels like since the Nations League stuff started, whether that's journalists being having other stuff to write about or United taking the foot off the gas. What's going on with that deal?
Yeah, I mean, the Nations League is problematic because there was that sort of little gap, after the end of the season, and then the Nations League, and then you've got all these players going away. It's quite a long camp. It's not like you've got 2 friendlies and then you're off on holiday. It's quite England have played 4 games, haven't they? So they're away for quite a long time. So it has been problematic in terms of getting in touch with agents and having people released and stuff and be able to speak to them, because these camps are very, very locked down. So that is part of it. I mean, the Timber thing again is an interesting one, because United are certainly interested in him. We were led to believe that there's no official clause in Ten Hag's contract that doesn't allow him to go to Ajax and sign whoever he wants. But there was some kind of gentleman's agreement in that he wouldn't gut Ajax. Right. There's obviously been a lot of interest in a lot of their players. There's Timber, Antony, Martinez, I think, in midfield as well. So while there's interest in all of these players, I can't see a situation where they just go and get 3 from Ajax, because I think Ten Hag is quite keen to make sure he doesn't burn his bridges with Ajax. He's had a great time there. That the fans love him. I don't think he's ruled out going back there in the future. So it's a case of who he picks, I suppose.
Do you think they'd all be keen to join United? Obviously, I think Antony's the one again that maybe has sort of stepped up again in the last sort of few days. Do you think it's sort of between them? One of the 3 or one of the 2?
I think it's probably, at this stage, it's probably more likely that it's Antony out of the 3 of those. Only because United have kind of said to people, that to agents and intermediaries in particular, that the defence is sort of 3rd on the list. The 2 areas that they want to strengthen is the attack, the midfield, and then the defence after that. I think the problem with the attack is that there are a lot of players there still. So in midfield, you mentioned there that there are no numbers now. No. Matic has gone, Pogba's gone, Lingard's gone, Mata's gone. Ultimately, they need quality, but they also need numbers as well, because they're quite lightweight there now. In attack, you've still got Martial, you've got Rashford, Ronaldo's still there. You've got Sancho, you've got numbers. It's whether they fit into what Ten Hag is trying to do. I think Anthony Martial is quite a big problem, in that he's gone on loan, he didn't go particularly well, he's going to come back. Does he want to be here? Can United shift him? He's got quite a long contract, he's on a huge wage. Clubs aren't going to pay probably his market value, because they've seen him go to Seville and not play particularly well. So, if they can shift him, then that makes a massive difference. If they can't, then that's a problem, because he has to be integrated into the first team squad and he has to be given a chance.
It's tough, that, isn't it? And it seems like we did a video a few weeks ago about some of the contracts United have given out in the last sort of decade. Some just ludicrous decisions, like, I think, David De Gea, I love him, has been a great player for Man United, but he was already one of the highest paid goalkeepers in the world, and then he got his wages almost doubled after sort of 2, sort of off years by his standards. And, the Martial one's a great example of that as well. Is it a case then that United are still looking to sell more players? Because there was this big kind of, Mata, Matic, Pogba, Lingard, Cavani have all gone. There's still people that, Bailly and Jones and maybe the likes of Martial as well. Do you still see another handful leaving United?
Yeah, but then you've identified the main problem there. I mean, Dean Henderson is a perfect example of that. I mean, Dean Henson is a very, very good goalkeeper, I think. He did really well at Sheffield United. He's come back. He signed a contract at United, a big long-term contract. He's one of the highest-paid goalkeepers in the Premier League, and he doesn't play. Now, that's not Dean's fault. No. United offered him that deal, and he signed it, because why wouldn't you? If something's put in front of you and it's great, then you do it. Now he wants to play games, which is, you can understand, because there's a World Cup coming up and he still thinks there's a chance of being in that squad. Obviously, just for himself, he wants to play. He's not the type that's happy to sit there on the bench. But he's going round now, or his agents are going round now trying to look for clubs, and they can't afford to pay his wages, because they're looking at clubs outside the top 6. All the top 6 have got goalkeepers, so you're looking beyond there, then they can't pay those wages for a goalkeeper. So then you're in a situation where United are going to have to say, well, we don't want to keep him here because he's not particularly happy sitting on the bench, so we're going to have to pay a portion of his wages. And you're back into that cycle again, the cycle they got in with the likes of Smalling or Rojo or Martial, and even the likes of Bailly. Bailly signed a massive contract about 2 years ago, and he's barely played since. And now he's saying that he wants to play, which you can understand, but there isn't that much interest in him because the wages are such a massive obstacle. The problem over the last 10 years is that United haven't been very good, ultimately. And the way to sign players is to offer them something that no other club can, and that's been money. And then when you want to move them on, you can't, because other clubs can't afford to do it. Other clubs that you're looking to sell to can't afford to do it. And it's a massive problem. I actually think that Ten Hag's got a little bit lucky in the way that he's taken over. And there has been a little bit of room for manoeuvre in the because Mata's contracts come up and Lingard's contracts come up. Pogba's as well, Cavani's gone. There is a little bit of room there on the wage bill and in terms of squad size, because these players have gone almost organically. Whereas if those players still had contracts, there's a case that you wouldn't be able to do that much, because you can't just keep adding player after player after player after player, because it becomes a massive issue. And it's one of the reasons why the dressing room didn't function particularly well last year. City have this really tight squad of about 15 players, supplemented every week by the youth team. But even the players that don't start every week are still playing 30 odd games. Whereas how many games did Bailly play last year? 10.
Yeah,
I don't know if that.
Yeah,
it's going to take. I think it's going to take years to unravel that. Which is one of the problems that Ten Hag is facing now.
Well, talking about Ten Hag then, and obviously the job he's got in front of him, first of all, is to start winning games, and then you don't have to be the best team in Europe to win an FA Cup or a Europa League or a League Cup. But obviously, any Man United manager, the end goal is, can you win the Premier League? What kind of as far as your understanding is, what does he see as the chances of doing that? Or does he come in genuinely thinking, give me 3 years and I'll win the league? Or is there more of an acceptance of, if you get top 4, you'll be able to stick around here?
He certainly made it clear during the negotiations this wasn't an overnight job, that if United were looking to win the league next year, that he probably wouldn't be interested. To be honest, I think that would have been true for every manager in the world, because City and Liverpool are miles ahead of everyone at the moment. I was impressed in his press conference, though, that someone asked him about City and Liverpool and said, is it a case that Pep and Klopp would have to go before anyone else could win the league? And he just said no. Why would it? All these eras have to come to an end. United's did, City's will, Liverpool's will. And he could have shirked that. He could have said, maybe. But he didn't. So he's obviously a winner. He's obviously used to winning at Ajax, and he's not come here to finish 4th. That said, I think it's vital in his first season that he finishes in the top 4.
Really?
No manager since Fergie has survived a full season having not finished 4th and then kept his job the following season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That if we're going back on history, if he was to finich 5th, people would be looking at that going, United could pull the trigger here. I don't think they will, but it happened to everyone. It happened to Van Gaal. It happened to Moyes. Got sacked when it was mathematically impossible about finishing the top 4. It happened to Mourinho when the season was going south. It was happened to Ole when it was going south.
And Ole had finished second the year before that, and that wasn't enough.
Jose finished second and then was sacked the following December.
Yeah.
Louis van Gaal finished 5th and won the FA Cup and got sacked. So hopefully this is a new era. I don't think that United can go into this season thinking that if Ten Hag finishes 5th, they're going to get rid, because I just don't see the point of that. You've got to give someone time. Someone on the football side, John Murtaugh in particular, needs to see that this is a massive, massive rebuilding job. And if it means finishing 5th and having a decent run in the Europa League and maybe having a decent run in one of the cups, then so be it. You have to sit in it a little bit, because Ralph Rangnick said himself that maybe this is going to take 10 new players, and people leapt on that, didn't they? And said, it could be 10 new players in the summer.
Yeah, sign 10 players now. Yeah.
But United have kind of distanced themselves from that and said, it's not going to be 10 players. But Rangnick's point was valid. They probably do need 10 players over the next 2 or 3 seasons, but it is going to take 2 or 3 seasons, and there's no point letting Ten Hag have, this summer or January and signing maybe 3 or 4 players, maybe 5, and then getting to next summer and going, all right, you finished 5th, you're out now. We're going to get Poch. Poch comes in and goes, right, I don't like 2 of them, so they're going.
Yeah.
And I don't like another 2 of these squads, so they're going. And now I want 5 players. Because this is what's happened all the way through since Fergie. Moyes came in and he said he wanted him. Van Gaal said, I want a different type of player. We want Daley Blind and Schneiderlin. Jose comes in and goes, I don't like Schneiderlin, he's gone. He's on 100 grand a week. Ole comes in and goes, I don't like some of the players you've signed, so I'm going to sign this lot. It can't carry on like that, because otherwise me and you'll be sat here in 20 years' time saying the same thing.
I hope so. Well, I hope we're not saying the same thing. You're on about 10 players, but that might be over the next 2 or 3 windows. Realistically, what do you think United fans can expect from this window in terms of the amount of people we're signing? Because, like I said, there's anything from 6, 4, 10. You'd be lucky if you get Frenkie de Jong. Like, what would you say is a realistic number?
Realistically, I mean, every summer United work to a plan of 3 in, 3 out.
Right.
So that's the kind of the plan that they work to. It's not rigid. It's not like, oh, we've signed 3 now, we can't sign this guy. I think that may be a little bit different this summer because I've already lost 4. And, you know, there could be more going. I wouldn't be surprised if Bailly went, Marshall could still go, Dean Henderson might go. I wouldn't be amazed if Aaron Wan-Bissaka went, if someone comes in and pays the wages and pays the money, or even on loan. So you're talking about, what's that, 7 or 8? Now, I don't think there'll be 7 or 8 new signings because I think Ten Hag wants a little bit of a tighter squad. I think he thought there was too many when he came in, and certainly Radnick thought there was too many. I wouldn't be surprised if it was between 3 and 5, would be my guess. Obviously, United will always say that if something came up, they would never turn away from that. I mean, you saw that last year with Ronaldo.
Yeah.
You know, they had Varane in mind, they had Sancho. Ronaldo sort of ends up nearly going to City, and it's like, oh, we can't let that happen. We're going to sign him as well.
Just a quick one on that. Was there another name in United's mind at that time? Were we working on another deal, and it ended up being Ronaldo instead? Because obviously, I'm glad United signed Ronaldo. I think, you know, PFA Team of the Year. I think this focus on him potentially affecting the squad negatively, I don't think it's his fault what's going on in that dressing room, and he's been our best player this season. But would we have ended up with someone else if he wasn't going to City?
I don't think so. My understanding of that was that he wanted to leave Juventus. His name was circulated all over Europe at the start of the summer, before the Euros. United went, oh, it's interesting, but we need other things. We need Sancho and we need Varane. I don't think in Woodward's wildest dreams did he think that he was going to start speaking to City. And then there's a point where it becomes, this looks like it might be quite close, and everyone will know that it was Woodward's dream to bring Ronaldo back right from the time when he took over. I'm not sure that if he was on the verge of signing for City, he would have signed for United. I think if that is replayed and he's on the verge of signing for Real Madrid, I think he signs for Real Madrid. I think it was an emotional decision made at a time where it was like, well, we've got this great squad, maybe this is the cherry on top. Can we do it financially? Well, yeah, we can, so we'll do it. Whether you think it was a good idea or a bad idea, you know, varies wildly depending on which fan you speak to. I think it's a really interesting debate, actually. You just said there that you would do it again, and it's, you know, a no-brainer. You know, there are fans out there who go to the game every week who will say, well, you know, he scored 20-odd goals, 18, whatever it was. I still wouldn't have signed him. I think that's really interesting.
I think it's one of those things where, as a fan, I would have signed him. But there's almost at some point I want, whether it's Ronaldo or not, but I don't want it to be who the fans want is who gets signed. Because obviously, I'm a United fan. I want Di Maria, I want Lukaku, I want Schweinsteiger, I want these big names. But there's part of me that wishes that the people doing the work at United had less emotion when they were signing these players. They looked at it tactically and what the manager wants only, what works on the football pitch, because Ronaldo sells a lot of shirts, but we didn't win any trophies. You know, we got worse. But yeah, like as a fan, that signing him, going to that Newcastle game, his first game, that's one of my best United memories, that Newcastle game. But I just want the people doing the actual job to have a bit more about them, where they go, sorry, but we need to do what's right for the team, because, you know, we've seen too much of that where it feels as though it's just fans making these decisions. Like, they could do a poll on Twitter, who do you want to sign? And 8 out of 10 of United signings would be the number one on that poll. Like, it seems we just get popular players rather than the right players a lot of times, which, you know, maybe is why we've not done so well over the last decade. Just finally then, are there any names that United are interested in that you're surprised we haven't seen more about yet? We haven't seen more, you know, rumours about, or is there anyone we think that one, you know, that one might be going on and it's going a little bit under the radar at the minute?
I mean, Max Aarons is the one that for a while that I've felt, you know, maybe someone that ends up at United. I know it's not particularly sexy, you know, but he's a very good player. He would fill, I think, a need at United. I think there are issues at fullback, particularly with Wan-Bissaka. You know, Shaw didn't have a great season. Tellers at the end of last season when he filled in wasn't particularly great, I didn't think. it would be interesting to see if United sign anyone from the Bundesliga. And I know that's a very broad stroke, but that was the kind of thing that when Rangnick came in, particularly in January, he wanted to sign someone. Apparently, had gone to the scouting department and gone, oh, I need something. What have you got on this name? And they kind of went, oh, we haven't really. We've got this, but it's not particularly in depth.
Just his Wikipedia page.
Well, yeah. Well, no, but yeah. And that Rangnick was a little bit surprised at that, which kind of feeds into what you just said there about, it's always these names that people know. I think the last one that came out of nowhere really was Bailly, maybe.
Yeah.
Marshall, that was before. But United don't tend to do that. And I think that's probably what United have missed a little bit. Liverpool do it all the time. Jota is one.
Yeah.
I know that Premier League fans will know him, but I think there's a little bit of surprise at Liverpool that it was just like, oh, we're interested in him, actually, but right, we're going to go and get him. It wasn't like Jota's far too good for Wolves, he needs to go somewhere. No. They just went and got him because it filled a need. And I don't think that United have done that particularly often.
No.
I mean, I can't think of anything in the last sort of 10 years where it's like, oh, I can't wait to see him.
No. Yeah, there was, Dan James is the one where he was a bit unknown, but he didn't turn into a top player for the first team. He was a decent squad player, but
and there is an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity to do that a little bit this summer. It's not like there are three positions or the three signings that all United fans will go, we need these three. There is a case that you can sign maybe a squad player who maybe plays 30 games this season, but next year becomes the guy that you can't not pick.
Yeah.
I just think United miss that creativity in the transfer market sometimes. In the way that City have done it a little bit, Liverpool particularly have done it. It's not rocket science. It's just good scouting. It's good scouting and it's good recruitment. Hopefully, this is the first window where we'll start to see that, because that's kind of the narrative that United are trying to push. That kind of holding hands up and going, yeah, look, mistakes have been made, but things are better now. We've got a better scouting network. The reporting lines to different people, whether it's Steve Brown or to John Murtaugh or to Darren Fletcher, are a lot clearer. It's a lot more streamlined. It'd be nice to see evidence of that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, United fans are going to be listening to me speak and go, yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see it.
We need to see it.
Yeah, we need to see it. And I don't blame him. And that's why part of the problem, it's part of the problem with Ten Hag coming in. I'm sure that United fans are very excited. The majority, you'll know better than me about, fans seem to be a lot more excited.
Definitely.
They've seen what we've done at Ajax. They've seen how we can coach and are quite, but they need to see it. They need to see it because we're not seeing it for a while. It's all very well me sat here and go, yes, this is going to be great. It's like, well, yeah, but it hasn't been. So
what faith can we have?
Well, I'm sure that a lot of United fans have lost faith, and you wouldn't blame them because why would you have faith? They've heard this, they've seen it before, they've heard the promises, and it's not come off.
No. And just a little bit quickly on the actual nature of transfer reporting and what goes into it, because obviously it's very much a sort of a sources based part of the season. You can't watch a match and report it. You have to know things and know people. And what do you make of you go on Twitter and your name is just uttered and the sort of highlight quote from an article that you've spent hours writing is retweeted and nothing else, and you see these accounts where it's a sort of a silhouetted out agent that's getting thousands of likes and retweets on basically nonsense. What is the transfer window like for you as a journalist who's contacting sources, being meticulous with what you write, and then you just see people making up absolute nonsense and basically undermining the sort of work that you do? Is it frustrating, or is it just part of the game, or how is it for you?
Yeah, a bit of both. It is frustrating. Yeah. It's also part of the game. It comes with the territory. You can't just do the season and then switch off and then pretend it's not happening, even though I'm sure that lots of journalists could wish that they could do that. The problem comes with a number of people involved, in my experience.
Right.
I know we just had a conversation before, like off camera, about how it works. United have got lists and lists and lists of these players. It gets whittled down from a massive number to a smaller number and then a short list. But the players who are on the list of 10, for example, don't often know that they're on a long list of 10.
Right.
The minute that United's name gets mentioned, they're like, oh, there's a chance here. Then the agent starts getting excited because they know that it could be a life-changing deal for them. Maybe they are in touch or in contact with certain journalists. They'll say, oh, you'll never guess who we've had on. And they go, right, well, we need to report that. Then United are in for him. 9 times out of 10, these things aren't going to come off. And it's not because, I see a lot on Twitter that people say that, journalists just pluck names out of a hat and pluck a fee out of a hat, and it's like, oh, put them together and there's your story. It's not like that. People are reporting what they know in good faith. The Núñez one is a good case, because obviously he's ended up going to Liverpool, so everyone who reported that United were interested will look like they've got it wrong. Yeah. And that's not strictly true. It's, United's interest was there. Has it happened? No. Is there any way of kind of proving that United were in? Well, no, because ultimately now United are on a kind of a push to show that they weren't really interested anyway. Well, yeah, like I didn't fancy her anyway, kind of. And that's their prerogative, and I understand that as well. So it's hard. It is hard because, as I say, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to come off. My feeling with transfers is that I think it's valid to report interest. Yeah. I know some people will feel like, well, you're just trying to get us excited for clicks or whatever, and you knew it probably wouldn't happen, but you're reporting it anyway and getting people excited. Well, I don't feel like that person. I can understand that, but I don't feel like that person. I think it's valid to report interest. Yeah. Whether fans understand that or accept that is up to them. I think it's very, very. I don't think you're ever going to be able to follow someone on Twitter who just gets everything absolutely nailed on. Like, this is the guy. He's signing for this club for this price. This is happening. It depends on who you're speaking to, which clubs you're close to, which agents you've got to know. Which agents even want to engage with journalists, because some don't. What clubs are giving away behind the scenes. It's all these things sort of coming together into like a perfect storm. And yeah, there is a lot of getting it wrong. There is a lot of not getting it absolutely 100% right. And it's tough. All you can do is do your best. Yeah. I think that for fans, all you can do is to look at people's work and go, that seems fair. Yeah. I couldn't understand where that's come from. It's not, not this guy hasn't said, this guy's definitely signing for this club, and then he's ended up going somewhere else. I think you've got to make your own minds up. All I would say is that there's an awful lot of people involved in it. There are players, there are agents, there are family members, there are clubs, there are intermediaries who have got nothing to do with anyone. There's a million people involved with a million different ideas about what they want out of it. To be honest, at the end of the day, don't believe anything until you see the guy with his scarf above his head.
Yeah, but where's the fun in that?
I
like getting excited by it. Yeah.
He hasn't signed until he signed.
No.
But you're right. It's the excitement. It's a merry-go-round. It's maybe we'll sign him. Maybe he's going to. Yeah, I'm as excited about that as any football fan, because it is exciting. Yeah, it's a little bit of fantasy in it. But as I say, until he's there with his shirt, it's not done.
Thanks again to Rob Dawson for coming on. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and get your thoughts in on all of those transfer updates that he's given us there. A lot of great stuff going on, and like he said, there's a lot of lists with a lot of players on it. But it looks like, Frankie de Jong may be the one to watch for Manchester United. Hit subscribe, hit like, and we'll see you in a bit.